Hey guys, it's Michaela and you're watching FunsizedStyle. So as you can tell by the title today, we are going to be filming a responding to people's assumptions about wheelchair users. I came up with this idea based on the popular YouTube trend that went around last year of responding to people's assumptions about me. So people, like whatever YouTuber was doing that video, so I did one of those videos. You guys sent in assumptions about me and wondered whether I thought they were correct or not, kind of explain the truth about it or whatever. And then I did a response, and then I put another twist on that video of responding to people's assumptions about my disability, osteogenesis imperfecta, and then today I'm going to be doing a responding to people's assumptions about wheelchair users. So I figured this would be a great video to do. I love the putting twists on that video, on that trend, because I think it's a great way to clear up misconceptions about ideas that people have, or misconceptions people have about different things, about people, about different topics. And you guys had great feedback from one of the previous videos I uploaded where I talked about my experience as a full-time wheelchair user since childhood. And since that video did so well, I figured this would be another great informative video because, I don't know, I just thought it'd be a great one to do. And you guys had some other questions in that video, so I figured this would be a fun way to kind of answer those and elaborate more maybe on some things that I may have missed out on in that video. So I asked you guys on Instagram the assumptions that you have about wheelchair users, not even wheelchair users, just wheelchairs in general, like the device itself, and of course wheelchair users as well. I asked you guys on Instagram, and then I had also done an Instagram live a few days ago, and I asked you guys on there if you had any as well. So I have some written down on a notepad since I had to use my phone to do the Instagram live. I've got quite a few. Hopefully you guys find this video interesting and informative. Let me know if you guys would like me to do a part 2 to responding to people's assumptions about wheelchair users or about me just in general. I'll have my playlist of my series of responding to people's assumptions about blanks playlist. Those videos link down below, and then I'll also have them link in the iCard, so whatever is easiest for you guys to access those videos. But again, I hope you find these interesting and informative, and so today I'm going to be responding to your assumptions about wheelchair users and just wheelchairs in general. So this should get very interesting. If you want to learn more again about the background of how, why, when I became a full-time wheelchair user, referred to the previous video, I will also have linked in the iCard and in the description below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into responding to these assumptions that you guys have. One may have. The first assumption that I'm going to respond to was probably the most interesting one. I really wanted to focus on this one. Not necessarily focus on it, but I just really wanted to feature this one first for some reason. And this assumption says you get immediate help priority in a line or service. That's so interesting that that's an assumption, and I guess I'm not sure why somebody would have that assumption. Maybe because they assume that one utilizes a wheelchair and we need more help or will take more time. I'm not sure, but to answer your question, no. However, I guess there's only one situation I can think of. Think at Disney World. Like, if you have a disability, you can get like I don't even know if they still have this. I haven't been to Disney World in years. They're called like fast passes, or there's like some kind of like disability access pass. If you have a disability, you can like go in the special line so you don't have to wait as long. And we did that like when we went when I was a child. We're 21 now. I went when I was like 7, I think. 7 or 8. I may have even been younger. 6 or 7? I was probably 7, and I'm 21 now, so 14 years ago. So like I said, I don't even know if they still do this. I'll have a little screenshot here if I can find any details about it. There was a special line for disabilities. I don't know if it's a wheelchair user thing or just any disability, and you get like fast-tracked or whatever in the line, and you don't have to wait as long. Like, obviously there's not a lot for wheelchair users to be able to access. In Disney World, I think that that's kind of their way to get many people that utilize a wheelchair in the park as possible. That's the only kind of scenario that I've ever been in where I get like first priority service, except I guess there is another one, flight boarding. Typically a wheelchair user is always the first to board the plane and the last to get off. In a way, that's kind of first priority. But those were the only 2 situations that I could ever think of. Other than that, no, we're average people, shouldn't even expect anything extra or special just because we ambulate differently. We're literally nobody as far as like special goes. It's a person may walk, a person may ambulate differently. So that has nothing to do with whether we should get first priority service or not, or high priority service when waiting in a line. Sometimes like when I'm in a checkout line at a store, or I don't know, even like at a fast food place, people will kindly let me go ahead of them. I think they're just trying to be courteous to me. I've experienced that quite a bit, which is super sweet, and a lot of times they'll say, no, it's okay. So I don't really take them up on that offer very much, but it is very sweet. In general, in my life, absolutely not. I do not get first priority, high priority, or whatever in a line, or like in a service situation. But I thought that assumption was so interesting. I had to answer that one for it. People with disability, physical disabilities, and that utilize a wheelchair should not expect those things. I just don't think it's appropriate, because we shouldn't expect society to serve us or to speak on our behalf. That's because we ambulate differently and happen to use a different device to ambulate. Just as much a part of a society as anyone else. We want to be just as independent and be treated an average citizen, not on this tier type level, if that makes sense. The next assumption is you get upset when people use the handicap button on doors. I wouldn't say I personally get upset. I don't know. I think there are people that utilize wheelchairs that do get upset about this, but I'm really not. That doesn't really bother me, because you never know what their disability is. Sometimes it may not always be a wheelchair user that utilizes the handicap door button or automatic door button. I'm not familiar, obviously, I am familiar with other disabilities, but as far as what other disabilities would require the use of the automatic door, I'm not really familiar with, other than if you don't have like the strength to be able to physically open it, and you may not necessarily utilize a wheelchair just because you don't have that strength. So I wouldn't say that I get upset about that. I think I get more upset when people try to do it for me, and they're just trying to be kind, and I appreciate that very much. With disability issues or accessibility, a lot of it comes from ignorance, not in a bad way necessarily, but people just, they don't know how to help, or lack of help, someone with a disability, if at all, or what situations it's okay to ask them if they need help. So it's a very awkward situation for a lot of people. Again, it comes down to the idea in societies that's been ingrained in society's minds that they need to serve us and help us. Most people with disabilities, physical disabilities especially, those that utilize a wheelchair to ambulate, are a lot more independent than you may realize. That doesn't mean you should never help somebody. That doesn't mean you should never ask somebody for help. It's just something to consider. Kind of go along with that, I wouldn't necessarily say that I get upset when people use the handicap door buttons. I get more upset when people use an elevator that don't need to use an elevator. Obviously, depending on what establishment it is, that's the only option. Some buildings only have elevators, which is great. When there is the option to use the stairs, and you're able to use the stairs, you should use the stairs. Yes, elevators are a total convenience thing, and I get it. But people that utilize a wheelchair already have so many obstacles. It already takes us so much longer to do the average daily tasks typically, and then when we have to add on the extra time to wait for an elevator, and you're able to take the stairs, but you choose to use up the time and space of the elevator when I physically can't, that really grinds my gears. You don't always know that somebody's disability, not all disabilities or health conditions are visible. Many of them are not, and I totally understand that. But there are situations where it's just black and white. You're able to tell that they do not have a disability. I know there are disabilities that are not visible. I know that. But there are situations, and I'm sure anybody with a physical disability can agree with me, that there are situations where it couldn't be more obvious that they don't have a disability and they're just being lazy. That's what gets me more than using the automatic door buttons, is when people use the elevator that don't need to use. The next assumption is wheelchairs are uncomfortable to sit in after a while. So most people that are full-time wheelchair users have a custom fit wheelchair, meaning it's custom fit. Everything from the seating to the measurement of the armrest, the fabrics that are used on the seat cushions, and the fabrics that are used on the armrests, and the height of everything. Everything, like my power wheelchair is custom fit to me. And all of my wheelchairs have been custom fit to me, especially being 2 feet 7 inches tall. I can't use a standardized wheelchair. They are massive. That's obviously not an option, which is why it is also such a crucial problem when airlines damage my wheelchair because they think I can just use a loaner chair. They don't realize how freaking tiny I am and I can't use a standardized adult wheelchair. I have to have custom. Like, I don't have the luxury of being able to one or the other. There's literally no other option. So because most full-time wheelchair users have a custom fitted wheelchair, for myself included and everyone that I talk to, like, we're totally comfortable spending all day in our wheelchair. I don't really know anyone that isn't. Some days it can be a little bit more uncomfortable. That's when I really started to notice like the progression within my scoliosis. I would just be getting more uncomfortable just like sitting in my wheelchair, feeling uncomfortable. I never felt before. And it wasn't anything that like I couldn't handle. Like it's never gotten to that point yet. But it's kind of like, oh, I noticed that. Like that's different. Myself and most people I've talked to isn't the case because they're custom fit. Again, if you're going to be a full-time wheelchair user, that's so important. Some days, as my scoliosis has progressed, like laying down is still one of my favorite positions, just when I'm most comfortable, but I don't spend all day laying down. I'm a productive person. I get up, do what I gotta do. I'm perfectly comfortable sitting in my wheelchair all day. It's what I'm used to as well. Like, I've utilized a wheelchair full-time since I was 3 years old, so it's literally all I know. Like, I don't know any different. Another thing that plays a part for me is I'm able to weight shift, change position, not bear weight on my butt all day. I'm constantly weight shifting. I do it all day long. I'm constantly weight shifting. I'm not sedentary, like in one spot and don't move like I'm a statue. I'm constantly weight shifting, so and that keeps my body moving and my body comfortable and not having like pressure issues. For most wheelchair users, full-time wheelchair users, again the custom fit, for the most part they're not uncomfortable sitting after a while. I'm like totally content right now and always have been. The next assumption is people assume that it's not a big deal to carry your wheelchair or you if there are stairs rather than making the place accessible. It's one that I think is so common within the full-time wheelchair user community. So that assumption is spot on. People think that all the time. You guys know I am not one to sip the tea, but I did a story time. What happened when I went to attend a Christmas party with my coworkers in December. They decided that they thought that they could carry me in the chair down the stairs. Like, that just seems to be a common solution when a place is not accessible. Little do they know how incredibly unsafe it is, especially when you have osteogenesis imperfecta. Business owners included, like so many business owners don't take the time or spend the money to make the place accessible. And just as you said it is spot on. And that's the truth. That's just how people think of it. They don't think of it as our legs. Like, we can't just take our legs off. That's something I mentioned in my last video. In that scenario of the Christmas party, I went to extreme measures to be able to participate at this Christmas party, and my coworkers did in my wheelchair, not me in it, down the stairs. And it was a huge ordeal. I would never normally do that in any circumstance. But in this specific scenario, I so badly wanted to participate. I was willing to go literally that extra step. And again, it all depends on the scenario. Most times I would just leave, depending on how important the event was or how important wherever I needed to be. But that assumption is so true. Most people think it's easier to carry me down the stairs in my chair, or me, separately in the chair, rather than just making the place accessible. Many business owners feel that way. This tiny chair weighs about 160 pounds. Like, it is not just like, you can't just carry it, like pick it up with a handle and carry it. It takes like 4 strong men to carry this chair. It is quite the ordeal, and that's how people view it, and it's not okay, and it's very, not demeaning, but I don't know, it's embarrassing when people think that that's the answer, because it's not. You wouldn't just be able to take your legs off if you felt like my wheelchair is in my legs. I can't be without it. Not an option. Most people do feel that way. The next assumption is sometimes people assume that your whole life revolves around your disability and your wheelchair. They don't see you as a unique individual with unique interests and hobbies, etc. Yeah, I guess I would say so. I don't know for sure because I never have had anybody actually come up to me and actually say, I view you as somebody that your disability and your wheelchair is your whole life and you don't have hobbies and you don't have interests. And obviously that's never happened. I don't think people are quite that blunt. And if you are, wow, dang, you need some help. I think people sometimes assume that, and I can tell just by the way that they talk to me or really lack. You guys know that high school was a horrible experience for me. I didn't have like any friends really. I think it is because they didn't see me or didn't care to get to know me as a person. High school had the reputation of being known as one of the most sickiest high schools in the area, like literally in the whole area. And there's quite a few high schools around here. So that's quite the reputation. At that school, I think if I wouldn't have a disability, I would have had friends. They didn't see me as one of them. They saw me as separate. Our high school was very focused on athletics, and so there weren't really any extracurricular activities for my peers to be able to get to know me outside of the classroom. My physical disability does not affect my mental capacity or my learning ability. It only affects, me physically, not mentally in any way. I think there was just a lot that played into it that they didn't see me as a whole person. They didn't see me as one of them, as a person with hobbies, as a person with interests, just like them. They saw me as separate and just as somebody with a disability and didn't take the time to get to know me as a person. That's why Austin and I sat alone every day at lunch and we tried to intermingle with people and they just didn't have any interest in starting a conversation with. I'm not saying that for pity or anything. I'm just saying that that was our reality every day for 4 years. Well, we are so glad that chapter of our life is over. So in that sense, yes, that assumption is true. In my adult life now, I don't think that's much of a true assumption anymore. The people in the settings that I'm involved in, they see me as a person, they see me as a whole person, and I have really good people in my life. Now that the chapter of my life is over and I'm able to be away from those people and actually get to know really good people. Back in those days, that assumption is true for me personally. Now, again, in my adult life, I don't think it's as true. That's not an assumption I can answer for everybody that utilizes a wheelchair. But I think most people would say they have experienced that assumption at some point in their life, if that makes sense. That one is really hard to explain, so I hope I did okay on that one. The next assumption is too many people question the strengths and capability of people in wheelchairs, or as I like to phrase it, utilize a wheelchair. Yeah, that assumption is totally true. You are so spot on about that. A lot of people see that somebody utilizes a wheelchair and assume that they're helpless, assume that they need to be served hand and foot and can't do anything or very little for themselves. So yeah, people doubt the ability that somebody has just because they ambulate differently. Granted, there are certain things that we may need help with or may not. And as I always say, you should give the person a chance to be able to do simple tasks on their own, because 9 times out of 10 they're more capable and more independent than you realize. Physical disability is such a wide spectrum, even within osteogenesis imperfecta. Like, you guys know my mom and my twin brother also have OI, but it affects each of us a little bit differently. So something my mom is able to do, it may not be something I'm able to do. Just a very wide spectrum, but as a whole, yes, people are quick to question the capability and physical strength that people that utilize a wheelchair have. I had to refer to what you were saying. But yeah, so that is spot on, and I think again, it just goes back to people are so much more capable than you realize, and you have to remember that somebody may have a physical disability and they may utilize a wheelchair. Their wheelchair doesn't symbolize their independence. It's the way that they ambulate. Just because they utilize a wheelchair doesn't mean that they're less independent. They may be, but again, they're more independent than you probably realize. Wheelchair doesn't symbolize their level of capability or their level of physical strength. It's just the way that they ambulate. That doesn't mean that they're not able to take care of themselves. The next assumption is that people that utilize wheelchairs don't have relationships. Yeah, that's a very common assumption, and as you guys probably know, I feel like this isn't as common now. I think it's still common, and I think it's also not as common anymore. People think if you utilize a wheelchair, you can't get married or be in a relationship. I feel like you guys here in my community are pretty level-headed for the most part. I've gotten the chance to chat with you guys in the comments a lot, and I would say most of you are pretty level-headed. I think you guys can agree and know that that assumption is totally false. People that utilize a wheelchair can, of course, be in a relationship and get married and do all of those things. That assumption is totally false. Again, like, we're literally just people. Like, a wheelchair does not define a person. A wheelchair does not determine a person's level of independence. It's literally just a tool they use to be able to ambulate, to move, to literally, like, live. It gives them the freedom to live. It doesn't define anything else. It gives them the freedom to live. It's not a restriction. It is not a barrier. It does not inhibit me from living life. Obviously, there are things that I can't do. Obviously, there are places that I'll never be able to go. Obviously, I'll never be able to go on a hike. I'll never be able to climb up a hike to a waterfall. Like, obviously, there are things I'll never be able to do, but for the most part, I'm able to do, and most everybody that utilizes a wheelchair is able to do almost everything that anyone else. I don't know how I want to phrase this video idea I have in my head, but I want to talk about how society views the ability to walk. I watch a few family vloggers, and some of their children were recently diagnosed with a physical disability. The mother was talking about how she was so angry when she first found out about this because she wanted her child so badly to walk. She wanted those things for her child. And of course, every mother wants the greatest for their child, but it also reminds me that it's been ingrained in her mind that ability to do that is so vital in that child's life to their independence and happiness. And that's not true. Like, you don't have to be able to walk to live a happy life. And I think when parents are presented with disability, like, that's their first thought, like, is my child ever going to be able to walk? Doesn't mean you shouldn't work towards that if they're able to someday, because it's good for them, it's good for their health, it's good for their mobility. The reality is that some people will never be able to, but that doesn't mean that it's sad. It breaks my heart that that's the way that disability is ingrained in these first-time parents with a child with disabilities. Mine is like, we put that ability so high up on a pedestal as a key to happiness. In order to live a happy, fulfilling life, to be a normal kid, parents have this idea that they want their kids to be normal. Everybody deals with something in their life. You guys know that. I say that in almost every video. I got off on a rant there, but it kind of goes with the whole thing of, like, people think we can't do this, can't do that. Like, obviously, yes, we can be in a relationship, get married, do all those things. A wheelchair is a tool to give a person with a physical disability the freedom to live. It symbolizes nothing else. It does nothing else. It's literally our legs. That's it. It doesn't define us as people. The next assumption is that you get judged easily. And so I think that kind of goes back to the assumption that I just answered or responded to. We can't be in relationships. We can't get married. We can't have kids. Like, we can't have a family. We can't go places. We can't do this. We can't do that. We can't walk. Because of these things, we're not happier. We won't be happier. Our life won't be as fulfilling. People have all these presumptuous feelings about that. I would say people that utilize a wheelchair do get judged very easily. And I think, again, it just comes down to the idea that society has of what's important. What's important to be a normal child? What's important a happy person? What's important to be able to have a family? What's important to be able to get married or be in a relationship? Like, walking defines none of that. Like, and it's literally a wheelchair, literally a tool. It is a mobility device that allows me to live because I cannot walk. And because I cannot walk, I would be in my freaking bed all day. How would I get around if I can't walk and I didn't have a wheelchair? How would I get around? I wouldn't want anybody carrying me all day. Well, I'm like, no, that's not appropriate. It's not safe. And as a 21-year-old wanting to be a part of society as much as anyone else, nobody's gonna carry me into my job interview or to my apartment. Like, no. It is a tool to be able to live life and to live a somewhat normal life, whatever normal is. There's no such thing as normal. I don't even know why that's a word. We are constantly getting judged about what we're able to do and not do, and this and that. For some reason, society has a picture that they're able to determine our happiness. Like, oh, she must live such a sad life because she utilizes a wheel. Do you really put the ability to walk on a pedestal so high? Like, when you get elderly, like, you're gonna be in for a wake-up call. Like, I'm just gonna tell you that. Like, if you put your physical ability so high up on a pedestal, like, you're gonna be in for a wake-up call when you're old. Obviously, the ability to walk is a gift. I don't know any different. Like, I literally don't know any different. And neither do most full-time wheelchair users, except for those that have acquired disability progressively or over time, or suddenly. I could go on a whole rant here, but yeah, people that utilize a wheelchair do get judged easily, and I actually talked about that a little bit more in depth in my video of my experience utilizing a wheelchair full-time as a child. So if you missed that video, that's a great point to kind of get more insight on this assumption and realizing that this assumption is indeed false. That's all the ones from Instagram. Now I'm going to go on to the question, or the assumption that I got from you guys during an Instagram live stream. So people assume that you don't mind waiting because you're always sitting down. Like, just waiting when you're out in public freedom. I wasn't quite sure how to address this assumption because I never thought of it that way. I can't really think of a situation that I've ever been in. I could tell that somebody thought like, oh, she's just sitting down, she can wait. I never thought that. People in society can be pretty dumb, but I don't think they're that dumb yet. I've never really experienced that where I could tell somebody thought like, oh, she's sitting down already, like she can wait a little bit longer, we'll have this place go ahead of her. I don't know. I never personally experienced that. I wouldn't say that assumption is false. Maybe other people that utilize a wheelchair have experienced this. But for me personally, I can't ever think of a time where that has occurred, or that assumption has been applicable. Sorry, that wasn't really much of a good answer. I never thought of it that way, but that's interesting. But I haven't experienced that. The next assumption is that there are complications of utilizing a power wheelchair versus a manual wheelchair. Yes, there are. That assumption is true. Obviously, a power wheelchair runs on electronics. It is man-made. Obviously, a manual wheelchair is man-made too, but power wheelchair involves electronics. They're much bigger. They're much more complex. Therefore, they break down. That's just inevitable. They wear out. They get old. They need to be replaced. So then that way, that is a complication. Power wheelchairs are among some of the most damaged pieces of equipment on airlines. You guys know I talked about that widely in that video of my experience as a full-time wheelchair user since childhood. So yeah, there's a lot of complications in that. They're more expensive, their repairs are more expensive, they can break down, they're not always reliable. I mean, for the most part, they are, but again, it involves electronics. They're not always reliable. A manual chair, like obviously a manual chair, never runs out of power. It never really breaks down. Like, you might get part replaced here and there, but it's pretty rare. I would say manual wheelchairs are treated a bit better on airlines from what I've been told, because they are smaller, they are more compact. A lot of them like do fold up, and that way airline travel is easier in that way. So there are a lot of complications for utilizing a power wheelchair like I do rather than a manual wheelchair full time. But again, the pros outweigh the cons with the tilts and the seat elevator up and down and being able to reach things and more mobilities with that, more freedom. Those outweigh the cons, but as a whole, I guess I would say yes, there are more complications of utilizing a power wheelchair than a manual chair, like convenience-wise. But for me, I would have more complications trying to use a manual wheelchair full-time rather than a power wheelchair, and I actually talked about that in my previous video of utilizing a wheelchair since childhood, so that's a great video to watch as well if you want more to this assumption. But that assumption is true. A wheelchair does not define who someone is. Only their heart defines who they are. And that's so sweet. Yes, that's so true. Like, you guys know, I mentioned this earlier, a wheelchair does not define a person. It does not define their level of independence. It does not define who they are or what they're going to be able to do in their life. Like, it's literally just their legs. Your ability to walk does not determine who you are as a person or what you're going to be able to do or what you're going to be able to accomplish just because you have the ability to walk. Same goes for somebody that utilizes a wheelchair. Who you are as a person determines how you treat people and the words that you say to people. That defines who you are, not a mobility device. People assume that those that utilize a wheelchair have lower mental function. Yes, that is so true. I get people that come up to me all the time, or even adults, they'll say oh, look at her. And obviously, I know I'm small in size, so people don't understand that I'm 21 years old. I don't look like I'm 21 years old. I think even those that utilize a wheelchair in general that are, quote, average size, they do get that. We'll just come up to them and start talking in a very condescending way. And today, just start talking in a very condescending way. Elderly people, they will talk to me like I am 4. It really bothers me. But I know, they're elderly. They talk to a lot of people like that. It really, really bothers me. Obviously, I know I'm only 2 feet 7 inches tall, I am small. Disability issues or just in general more widely known, so I feel like we should still kind of be past that. Like, obviously still so much ignorance about disability unless you know of somebody or have met somebody with a physical disability, or wouldn't really necessarily know, but as a whole I feel like that's just kind of basic. I thought we were kind of be past that as a society by now, but we're certainly not, and so many people that utilize a wheelchair have experiences where those around them will assume that they have lower mental function, and it is so annoying. I just want to be treated like the 21-year-old that I am. The last assumption that I received is it's polite to ask someone that utilizes a wheelchair if they need help with something. I would say it's polite. I think what's not polite, going up and doing it for them automatic without asking, which I've had so many people do. Again, pressing automatic doors or whatever it may be. People that utilize a wheelchair are so much more independent than you realize. It is polite, but again, give them the opportunity. Assume that they're more capable than you think in the back of your mind before asking. And if they say no, thank you, no means no. If they say no, don't do it for them anyway. If they said no, that means no. If they would have said yes, then you could help them. No means no. And don't be offended if they say no thank you. It's got nothing to do with you as a person. We want to be just as independent as you if we're able to be. Providing for ourselves. Being independent. Being an average member of society. We're not this separate group of people just because we ambulate differently. So those are all the assumptions that I received about utilizing a wheelchair. Assumptions about wheelchair users in general and just the wheelchair as a device itself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if this helped clear up any assumptions you may have or somebody you know may have. So share this video with those that may be ignorant about wheelchairs or wheelchair users in general. Let me know if you found this helpful. Let me know if you'd like a part 2 to this video or a part 2 to any kind of responding to assumptions about blank. I really enjoy filming these types of videos. They're one of my favorites. I don't know, I love hearing what people think. I love hearing the crazy misconceptions people have. You know, it's my life. I don't know any different, but then these videos or these assumptions make me realize there's so much people don't know, but that gives me the opportunity to educate. I love it, and I believe that's part of my purpose. And I just hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you guys so much for participating. For those of you that sent in assumptions, I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!